You have to do the best you can to get the signal right. There's so many things that people just assume that when they've had it processed is done correctly. Mm-hmm. For example, how well do you phase tie your data to the well log? Mm-hmm. You'd be amazed at how many times you'll find out that, well, I'm 90 degrees out of phase. You haven't even really gone and looked at it closely. And, we used to do this for hours, multiple times. You would phase rotate data just to see where, because you're dealing with an unstable wavelet to begin with the vibrator, right? Yeah. And so getting that wavelet to zero phase, just because someone says we're doing zero phase processing does not necessarily mean it's zero phase. The process is zero phase based, mm-hmm. but you need to check the phase of the data. We had a data set one time looking for a Wolfcamp events down in Glasscock County, just thickenings in the Wolfcamp. And man, we had a nice data set at the time, and first 3 wells were no good. We had processed it, and they came back to us, and come to find out, the interpreter at the time had the phase wrong. Phase rotated 9 degrees, everything fit. All of a sudden, all the well control fit, and all of a sudden, because seismic data will look different if it's phase rotated. And so you got to have all the basics right before you can really get into some of the high-end stuff like, the 5D interpolation, pre-stack depth migration. Yeah. Pre-stack depth migration is interesting to me in the Permian. Subsalt, it makes a lot of sense. You've got a very large velocity field. That big salt block that you're trying to image underneath, it's there. The velocity changes and the velocity gradients in the Permian are very, very subtle. Yeah. And so iterating that velocity model to get that pre-stack depth migration plus or minus 10 feet, that's tough work. Yeah. That's tough work. Offshore, you're trying to get it plus or minus 100 feet. In the Permian, you're trying to get it tight. So I think there's a whole lot of some of this just involves more learning. I mean, if you think about what we're doing in the Permian Basin from horizontal drilling and completion, we don't have a whole lot of data to use.
We don't.
Not compared to what you did back in the 2D, early 3D days when it was all conventional structure. We're just now gathering enough logs, data sets, analogs, what worked, what didn't work. I mean, we're still early on.
Yeah, it's a whole new beast.
Yeah, we're early on. We're on the front side of the learning curve on this thing. Yeah. And, the closer the G&G team, the deeper into the room they can get, the more successful it's going to be.
Wow, I love that.
They just can't be in the room next door supporting. They need to be in the room with engineering, petrophysics, geochem. They've got to be there. All that relates.
That's right.
Seismic data are the one thing that brings all that together. It brings geology, brings engineering, brings petrophysics. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what geophysics is. Geophysics is the study, whether it's magnetics or whether it's seismic. It's the study of how rocks respond to different things, mm-hmm. or what kind of properties they put out in terms of magnetic or electrical or gravity, whatever the case may be. In our case, we're trying to study how do rocks respond to an acoustic wave. Yeah. That involves rock properties, petrophysics. It involves all those. So all we're trying to do is predict what that well log would look like in between those two wells.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. And it's nearly impossible because we just don't quite understand what
here's
this
the problem.
Basin was made from.
Seismic's the best tool we've got to see the subsurface. There's not anything that's out there that we found, and not anything that's coming anytime soon. We're trying to understand the Earth to a great detail, mm-hmm. using an acoustic tool in an elastic medium. Mm-hmm.
Oh, weird.
So we're trying to image this thing acoustically. The next phase, we've gone through full wave inversions are out there now, pre-stack time migration, full elastic migrations, processing those types of things, because that wavefront moves differently than what we think it does. And so it's an elastic medium, which means we've got to figure out, and there's some processing shops doing it.
Yeah.
That are getting this thing back more to an elastic-based process rather than acoustic. So there's some really exciting things going.
Really? How do you stay up on that?
As tough as the industry is right now on everybody, this industry is resilient. This industry continues to develop and learn. It's the most fascinating industry that I can think of. The problem with the industry now are the big boys aren't there. You don't have the Western geophysicals. You don't have the GSIs. You don't have the big shops that did a whole lot of R&D stuff in the back room. The R&D work in the geophysical side, seismic side's been pretty well pushed back to, the majors are involved in it, but the field of folks doing full-blown R&D work isn't as big as it was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
No kidding.